Michael, thank you very much for that very generous introduction. I'm not really going to talk about myself at all, but thank you to Tiffin for inviting me. Thank you all for coming. I've been asked to speak very briefly before the main business of the evening about my book, to which you gave a kind introduction. I guess we're all of us on the same mission. I'm certainly a man on a mission to promote philanthropy and to increase philanthropy. And I'm going to shamelessly promote my book because I don't get anything out of it at all. I wrote a book called Giving is Good for You and felt I couldn't keep the royalties, so they're being donated. Why did I write this book? Well, I've been a fundraiser for, I guess, 30 years. I had a fundraising for 20. I've been a charity trustee, and in the last few years, I've discovered the joy of giving. And when I retired from Tate in 2011, to the surface came this frustration, almost anger, that I realized it was always the same people giving, particularly the people giving the biggest donations. And I shared my frustration with some of my fellow fundraisers and with some of the benefactors. And of course, it is a fact that it is only a minority of the very wealthy. I'll come to all the rest of us at the end. But just talking about the most wealthy, it is only a minority who are in giving. And this is rather curious at a time when there has been such a phenomenal increase in personal wealth. 25 years ago, there were 9 billionaires living or based in the UK, and now they're pushing 90. The Sunday Times Rich List tells us that in the last 12 years, the combined total wealth of the top 1,000 people in this country has increased by a staggering 300%, despite recession, whilst the incomes of most of the rest of us and tax revenues, and more importantly for us this evening, charitable giving, are all in decline. And this matters at a time like this of growing inequality because we now have the documented evidence that tells us it is the most unequal societies that are the most dysfunctional, the most violent, and the most unhealthy, and that impacts upon all of us, including the very rich. So I think this is a defining moment. And my point is that we're programmed to give. You know, it's altruism as well as being competitive that gave the human species a competitive advantage, because we all have to work together. I mean, just think about this. We all have to eat. Most of us have to have sex, and if we do these things intelligently and well, we feel rather good about them. And it's the same with giving. Just ask any donor and they will tell you. So my worry is we're in danger of losing the plot, and between us all we're going to put that to rights. So what was the methodology for writing this book? Well, I worked out that it's those who give are going to make the most compelling case for giving. So I talked to about 50 benefactors in various parts of the country. I found these people were not shy about coming forward. They feel unbelievably passionate and extraordinarily strongly about their peers who don't give. Some of their views, particularly from a gentleman who works in this building, were unrepeatable. And some of them didn't get past the lawyers, but a few did. So do read it, because you will be entertained as well as informed. However, I set out to write a book to promote giving, but when I spoke to these donors, they are so engaged in the projects that they are supporting. They're so determined to affect change and improve lives for others rather than themselves, that I realized that they were giving us a template of not just how to give, but how to live. And I would urge you to read just for that reason. So these are people who are undaunted by difficulty. They're determined to make a difference and to prove that individual people can really make a difference. And in my opinion, they are the heroes and heroines of this age, because they are seeking solutions to problems by supporting the most disadvantaged, by helping the young unemployed, the homeless, those whose human rights are denied, by enhancing education for the most disadvantaged, by investing in pioneering medical research, and investing also in higher education and the arts. So, also these donors confirmed what most of you who are giving will know, that giving provides fulfillment. And I talked to a couple, a rather conservative couple in Newcastle, who to their astonishment found themselves funding a refuge and re-education for vulnerable sex workers in Newcastle. There's the Yorkshire couple who are giving £1 million a year to the Prince's Trust to support the young unemployed in Yorkshire. And another couple who funded a research centre at Manchester University, Research into Poverty, which is providing really positive outcomes for people who live in slums in Bangladesh or the rural poor in Zimbabwe. So, conclusions and recommendations. I am about to conclude. The consensus among the people I spoke to was that whilst the big society was potentially a really good idea which could have appealed to both left and to right, it's become toxic because it's been politicised by our government and has, we suspect that they want to use philanthropy as a cover for declining public expenditure. However, the state is in retreat. We need a stronger voluntary sector. We need to increase philanthropy. The FT is calling for the reform of capitalism. Now perhaps is the time for a new social contract. The public sector is in trouble, the private sector is in trouble, so who should take responsibility for what? So these were the recommendations and the views of our donors, many of which were rather surprising. Government. Whilst many would much prefer government to have absolutely nothing to do with any of this, I'm afraid they have to, because public money is involved via tax relief. But the government and all politicians, regardless of party, have a responsibility to understand the motivation of donors. I mean, understanding the motivation of donors is key to absolutely everything. If they had understood how donors work and what motivates them, they would never have been so rude to them in that budget in 2012, where they accused donors of acting entirely out of self-interest. So they've got to change the mood music. They've also got to recognise, and we all know, that philanthropy is always going to be a matter of choice. So we should be doing everything possible, and so should government, to persuade people who've got surplus funds to convert those into social capital rather than to, say, buy another yacht. And so the conclusion is, and this was articulated beautifully by a man called Roger Carr, he used to be president of the CBI until recently, we need a national strategy for the voluntary sector and for philanthropy. We need to take it away from the politicians, or at least get all political parties to have a consensus on this. Otherwise we're going nowhere. And at the same time, charities will need to be more accountable. Because they're receiving public money, we have to be convinced that they're acting in the public interest if they're going to receive our taxpayers' money, and our donors are going to get tax relief. And some of them, present company accepted, of course, need to improve their fundraising by, again, understanding the motivation of donors and how to engage their interest. Specific measures, the usual things we've been hearing for years, but government won't do them. Extend tax relief to a wider range of assets, introduce lifetime legacies, as well as tax relief on legacies of death. And here the donors were so interesting on honours. They were absolutely apoplectic, if that's a word, about people who get honours and don't pay tax. I should say 98% of the people I interviewed are giving fabulous amounts of money and paying full UK tax. So nobody should be eligible for honours in a leading position unless they can demonstrate charitable commitment and are known to be paying their tax. And even more extreme views were expressed, surprisingly, that we should do away with non-dom tax status for Brits, and we should follow American good practice. So if you have a UK passport, wherever you're living, you pay UK taxes. I was surprised by that. But really, in conclusion now, we can introduce these measures and things will improve, but we're not going to make that real fundamental change in attitude we need unless we do something positive. So while we're all about encouraging the rich to contribute, we need to think about how all of us engage with this and transform society. And the only way we're going to do that is change the way we educate our children. We have to teach young people that everybody, regardless of wealth, has a role in sustaining our civil society. You see, it's all very well having an education system for attainment, that's good, but it's useless without values. And so what I'm basically saying, and what these donors are all agreeing with me, is that we should put citizenship and volunteering and formal programs into the curriculum, and that young people should aspire to earn a national diploma at by the age of 18, which will show their commitment to their fellow men and women. It will be valued by higher education, and particularly by employers who are looking for a demonstration of commitment. So finally, what I'm saying is that this is how, to be topical, this is how we escape the race to the bottom. We overcome our addiction to materialism, we rediscover our humanity, we find personal fulfillment, which so many people find so elusive. And by doing that, we strengthen our society. We learn that giving is good in every sense, and is good for all of us. So please, buy the book, get that message out, start blogging, start tweeting, but finally, good luck to everybody who's presenting this evening. Thanks so much.